I'm in the middle of making up my current batch of Switch X's, and I thought I'd stop for a second and talk about a few little details while I've got things in motion making it. A lot of companies spend a lot of money on cases and a lot of things that don't affect performance. In fact, sometimes fancy cases can result in worse performance. But some of the things I do are quite different. I spend a lot of time on the engineering, a lot of time on each type of component, the exact selection, a lot of the measuring, a lot of the engineering. One of the things that I do that's unusual is the interconnects, or the cables for them. All my products, the Apple TV X and the Switch X, both have dongle cables. They're not connectors on each end. This is because they're 4-wire. They're not, the power supply isn't normal to them, but also because they're a transmission line. They're not just simply a power cord. What goes on between the power supply and the unit is really complex, deep engineering. And so what has to happen is it's not just DC power. There's a lot going on. And so you really have to match up what you're doing in order to cover the frequencies that are involved, the current impulse frequencies, and everything going on that's being drawn from the unit. These cables are really much more like speaker cables than they are power cords. So, just hooking these things up with just hooking all this gear up with just any old DC power cord and any old linear just doesn't work. You've got to match it all together. Anyway, so in doing these power cords, these aren't normal at all. What I do on all my products is I use very specific types of stuff. Like it's all silver solder, it's all 4% silver solder. And I use special types of wire. Wire you can't buy anymore. Back in the 80s, there was this thing called the Montreal Protocol. This banned a whole bunch of ozone depleting chemicals. At that time, the process for making Teflon changed. So in my opinion, Teflon after that point was never quite the same. So I have a really large stock of the pre-Montreal Protocol Teflon-based silver conductor mil-spec wire. And, this stuff is all, late 80s kind of stuff. It's higher performance, in my opinion. So I use that, and in just using, I don't just use a large gauge, for example. I'm using 2 of them put together to make a larger gauge. The reason for this is skin effect on each individual conductor in the strand, and also separating them out like this produces a better high frequency and mid frequency performance for making the impedance lower at the higher frequencies, so that the power supply is more effective on the board. All my products use a noise-canceling power supply. How does that work? Well, the power is delivered via the 2 main conductors, which in this case is quite large on the Switch X, and then a sensing wire, which is again that same type of Teflon, silver solder, all that fun stuff, and that it's all twisted pair because it's sensing high-frequency noise, and that is these then go into the Switch X. And along with a really large cap that goes in here. And what happens is I sense the noise in the actual power supply itself, canceling it out here. So this is radically different than people that don't even sense what's going on in the unit. So that means the regulation is all sensed here, the noise cancellation is all done there. So this requires a 4-conductor system in order to do that. That's why all my linears are 4-conductor. They're not like any other linear that I've seen out there. And they're integral in making all this work properly at the right frequency. So I wanted to cover what I'm doing just like with the wire. This type of attention to detail goes into a whole bunch of other things. This board's already done, but it's all on the other side. It's on the back side. I've got other pictures of some of that up there already on the website. The part quality is where the money goes, not to the case, not to carbon fiber, or which isn't even a shield, or like billets of copper. It doesn't go to any of that kind of thing. It goes strictly into the parts, into the materials, and into the labor and the unit to put it all together. So there's a level of attention here I just don't see done on other switch products.